Transportation Committee of the City of Los Angeles on Wednesday, April 13th. And I'm the chair, Bill Rosendahl, and I'm joined by Paul Koretz and Tom Bonge. We have a quorum. We're wondering, and I'm sure Bernard Parks and Mr. Alarcon will show up as well, but we're going to go forward with the agenda. There are some items on this agenda that could go on consent, and I'd like to see if my colleagues are supportive of that, and if they are, we'll try to get rid of some of these other items as much and as quickly as we can. What I'd like to put on consent, colleagues, are item 1 and 2 of the regular agenda and item 1 and 2 of the special agenda. If you look at that, Maria, just tell them what they are for the record.
These are all renewals of preferential parking districts. On the regular agenda, item 1 is renewal of preferential parking district number 50. Item number 2 on the regular agenda is preferential parking district number 92. On the special agenda, item number 1 is renewal of temporary preferential parking district number 131, and item 2 on the special agenda is a renewal of temporary preferential parking district number 162.
Okay, do I have a motion to put
So moved.
Second and moved, so moved by the three of us, unanimous. Those 4 agenda items are finished. If we could take on the regular agenda item number 3.
Item number 3 is a Reyes-Rosendahl motion requesting that the city attorney prepare an ordinance to repeal LAMC section 80.27 relative to restricting child bicycle seats to the rear of the operator of a bicycle.
We have 2 speakers' cards, I think. I knew that that's what you were coming up for as well. Alex, come on up. Alexis and Damien. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much. Alexis Lance, Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. Good to see you. The Bicycle Coalition supports the motion as a proactive effort to support more parents and children riding bicycles together. I think Damien will sort of talk about his experience since he actually is a parent that uses a cargo bike, but the majority of cargo bicycles include seat belts and allow parents to safely secure baby seats to the cargo bike as well. And for those of you that made it out to Ciclavia and saw the amount of parents that have front seats for their bicycles as well as cargo bikes, I think this is a great effort to really encourage more riding and more kids being able to enjoy the city with their parents. And as I said, it's a proactive effort that will hopefully defer tickets that are, rather unnecessary. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments as well.
Would it be okay? I tried to print something, a picture of what this cargo bike actually looks like, but it didn't print very well. Could I just approach for a second, just to give you a quick visual of what it is we're talking about?
You got to approach the bench.
And we're now joined by Mr. Parks, so we're now 4 out of 5.
So you've actually seen it before.
Yes.
This is sort of the design of the cargo bike with the child seat. So where can you see that?
I can see it.
You can just see the picture.
Hello.
We're talking about cargo bike. This is what.
Thank you.
So.
Show the public just so they.
All right, put it up here and just sort of move around. Sorry, my color printer just wasn't a high enough resolution.
That's okay.
But the process of actually putting this sort of child seat into a thing like the front bucket like that, a lot of people don't think it's safe, so I wanted to just quickly explain how it actually works. Is there's a seat belt at the bottom of the bucket. And we take the same base you use for a car seat. You take the same base you use for a car seat, and you put it in, and you strap it into the bucket, just like you would if you were strapping it into a car. The plastic top that you see there is rated for up to 150 pounds of pressure. So even for a child that's too small for a bike helmet that couldn't ride a normal bike can ride one of these safely, because the odds of a bike like this flipping, you'd really have to be broadsided at a high speed. So any sort of safe cycling, and you don't have to worry about that. And you strap the thing and you just put the car seat in as though you would a normal car. And the one that I showed you, we put some foam padding like you see on like college students' beds to try and make them a little softer around it, so it wasn't just buckled into wood for our own child's comfort. But this is done, if you include countries like China and the Netherlands and in South America, there's literally probably 100 million kids that move around in bikes like these. And this law wasn't designed to cover bikes like this. It was really designed for kids on handlebars. But we've gotten to the point where those aren't really, that law is sort of antiquated. And I just wanted to let everyone know that this isn't some sort of strange thing. This is a world-class safety way to ride a bike. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that too. And for my colleagues in the audience, This motion states that the European cargo bikes and front-mounted child bicycle seats are becoming increasingly popular in the United States. Cargo bikes allow bicyclists to put items or their children in a box, basket, or platform mounted over one or both front wheels. Front-mounted child bicycle seats have clear safety advantages, including better control of the bike when loading and unloading a child, and clear visibility to see what a child is doing at all times. As Damien showed his, I've seen him with his child. LAMC Section 80.27 requires that any seat other than the regular seat for the bicyclist must be attached to the rear. This long-standing city regulation is in direct conflict with the California Vehicle Code, which has recently updated and allowed for the use of European-style cargo bikes and front-mounted child bicycle seats. The recommendation, colleagues, is request that the city attorney prepare a draft ordinance amending LAMC 80.27 to bring it into compliance with CBC 21204. The amended ordinance should simply incorporate the 2124 by reference and use the same language as contained in 2012-04 to avoid any presumptive issues. Do I have someone who'd like to make this motion? Or
I'll make the motion. Before I make the motion, I want to thank the Los Angeles County Bike Coalition for last Sunday. I also want to thank the Department of Transportation, the Department of all other good that works out there on this day, the police department, traffic officers, everything. It was a great celebration. I was able to participate in it. It was very good. And Mr. Rosenthal, I want to thank you as chair of this committee, because this item, you said the key words. The California State Vehicle Code accepts this, so we're going to become in compliance with the state regulation. That allows me to move forward in that case.
Thank you so much for saying that.
And the child will still have to have a helmet on, correct? Good, thank you. Just speaking for those.
Reyes Rosenthal one, and it was my colleague Ed Reyes who took leadership in putting this motion forward. Mr. Koretz, Mr. Parks, you want to add anything?
Nothing to add. Sounds great.
I'm just glad my son is doing so.
All right.
But he's got you have a grandchild there now. Okay, so it looks unanimous. Do I have unanimous support on that? Yes, we are moving item number 3 as recommended, Maria, in the note that I just mentioned. Item number 4.
Item number 4 on the regular
Can I
agenda.
ask one question more on that? I see Michelle Maurer. I didn't see her before. Is it legal to ride on the wrong side of the street in a bicycle, Los Angeles? And does the coalition want to add anything on this here?
Michelle Mallory, Department of Transportation and the City Senior Bicycle Coordinator.
I want to add the coalition guy, too. Coalition. Come on
The
up.
California Vehicle Code considers a bicycle a device with all the rights and responsibilities of a vehicle, and thus bicyclists are required to ride in the same direction as motor vehicles.
Great. And the coalition feels that way, too?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to an education issue, and it's one of the things we are trying to address,
Right.
is getting...
Because it would
people-
scare me to see someone ride the wrong way down the street with a child in this or single on a bike. So as long as we got that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we've moved that motion, and now we are on item number 4, a
Item-
Labange-Krikorian motion.
Which is directing the Planning Department in coordination with DOT and the Bureau of Engineering and in consultation with the Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council and the Office of Council District 4 to review the feasibility of redesignating and downgrading a segment of Foreman Avenue.
From Camarillo to Valley Spring Lane, from its current street classification of secondary highway to a local street.
Absolutely. It's very much a local street. In some plan they wanted to widen this whole street and then go right through a green space across the LA River. It doesn't make sense. Should be removed. Appreciate your support.
And what we'd like to do with your support on this, Mr. Labange, is approve this motion and refer the matter to Plum.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have a second on that, Mr. Koretz and Mr. Parks? Do you agree with that? So moved. That will then go to Plum
With a recommendation to
with the
change it.
recommendation to change it.
Good.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Now, special agenda item number 3.
Item number 3 on the special agenda is a CAO report relative to extending on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 12 months the following contracts for transit services, dash packages 4 and 5B with MV Transportation, and Dash Package 5A with Veolia Transportation. And we have DOT and the CAO here to report.
Give us a quick update on this and what action you want.
Angela Broom, CAO's office. The report before you recommends approval of the Department of Transportation's request to execute the month-to-month contract amendments for up to a year for Dash Packages 4, 5A, and 5B. These service areas provide transit service to Central Northeast Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, and the San Pedro Wilmington areas. The contract amendments are necessary to continue the transit services uninterrupted while the Department of Transportation completes the competitive process they have currently in progress for our city's transit services.
Jim?
Yes, thank you. Jim Lefton with the Department of Transportation. I just wanted to weigh in for a moment, if I may, about the reason why we're coming to you asking for an extension in the first place. And a lot of it has to do with the comprehensive transit line-by-line analysis that, as you recall, we conducted last year and implemented recommendations in August of 2010. Because up until August 2010, we didn't know which services were going to be approved for cancellation or reduction. We really couldn't move forward on putting out an RFP until we had that approved by the council and implemented. So that was part of the reason. But also I want to point out that as a follow-up to that line-by-line analysis where we looked at ways to improve the cost-effectiveness of the services that we operate, we also decided to take a good hard look at, are there ways that we can be more cost-effective in the way we deliver services? And with the trend that we've been seeing with when contracts expire and we put out new RFPs, we've been seeing some pretty significant increases in costs. And with reductions in service levels that we implemented with the line-by-line, we were concerned that we were going to see significant increases in our hourly rates. So we decided what we did was we ended up consolidating a lot of services that were coming up for renewal in 2011, 2012. Rather than putting out a number of smaller separate RFPs, we consolidated services and modes together into a larger RFP, which provided for more robust service packages with the goal of providing the city with some economy of scale cost savings and greater level of competition among proposers to the RFP. The idea would be that if we can provide for economy scale cost savings, we can come in with lower costs than we would have anticipated otherwise, which basically means cost savings to the city and helps mitigate the need to have to cut additional services in the future. So we're currently evaluating responses to that RFP. We received 6 responses, which is about double what we typically receive. And we are seeing preliminarily seeing some good numbers in terms of cost savings over what we would have expected otherwise. And so we'll be submitting a separate report to the council and mayor in the very near future with our recommendations for contract award. But in the meantime, we do need these extensions in order to maintain service until the new contracts are awarded.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions for the record, okay? What is the total cost of the contract extensions per month?
I have the amount of the additional cost. I don't have the cost for the total cost of the contract. I don't know if you have that. But basically, for package 4, it's about an additional $20,000 per month. For package 5A, it's about $122,000 a month, and for package 5B, it's about $36,000 a month.
And what is your current timeline for competitive bid and award processes? Do you anticipate needing the full 12 months before new contracts?
No, we don't. The proposals were submitted in February. We have an evaluation team put together. We expect to complete our evaluation and put a report forward within the next 30 days or so. So the sooner that we can complete the decision-making process, the approval process by the City Council, we don't anticipate that we're going to need anywhere near 12 months for these contracts.
Very good. Appreciate that. How will a consolidated provision of all transit services assist in addressing the growing merger of transit companies, thereby reducing competition?
Actually, the goal of combining the services together was to get a higher level of competition and more participation. As I mentioned before, we typically receive 2 to 3 proposals for our individual service RFPs, but with this RFP we received 6, and I think it's partly the matter of the size of the contract made it more attractive to firms that maybe otherwise wouldn't have participated. And also, by mode, City Ride, Dash, Commuter Express, you have companies that maybe focus in on certain types of service and may not respond to other types of service, but by combining them all together, you got everybody to come to the table and participate. And we have some examples of firms that are partnering with other firms to strengthen their proposals. So we actually achieve the goal of getting a higher level competition through this RFP process.
Last question is, how do the contract extensions protect the city with respect to the increasing costs of fuel?
The extensions provide for the contractor to assume full responsibility for the cost of fuel. The new contracts that we have basically are a pass-through, so the city is not on the hook if costs for fuel go up under these contracts.
Thank you. And the recommendation, colleagues, is to approve the CAO report. Is there any questions from any of you on this? Mr. Parks.
Let me just ask, where are we on the whole issue of the property deficit with the changes that were made, and also as we're going through this year?
As you recall, last year we were facing a shortfall of about $150 million over a 10-year period, and we were looking at about a $25 million shortfall in 10-11. We went through the detailed line-by-line analysis and brought our recommendations to the City Council. The estimated cost savings for 2010-11 were approximately $20 to $25 million in savings, and that's going to go up in 11-12 because we have another fare increase that's going to affect on July 1st, 2011. So based on that report, we projected that we would be solvent through 10-11 and 11-12, and we'd have to take a look at 12-13. That's still where we stand today, and I think a lot of it will depend upon what comes out of this RFP process, because this new RFP contains a significant portion, a majority of the services that we operate are contained in this new RFP. So if we can get favorable cost rates under this RFP process, it bodes much better for us going forward. So I think we'll need to take a real close look at that once the new contracts are awarded.
The new contracts are what, 3 years, 5 years? Or?
The new contracts will be approximately 5 years. It's some are phased in, so each particular service will be around 4 to 4.5 years, but the total span will be 5 years.
Okay. And then is there expectation of continuing to reduce service during that 5-year life of that contract?
We're always looking, every year we look at our services and evaluate the performance, and if services are not performing up to par, we look at reducing service or eliminating service. But in terms of the shortfall, hopefully we will, with this new contract, we'll be in a position where we'll be able to go for a number of years without having the need to have to cut service because of a shortfall situation.
So, but we do that annually?
We review our services every year, yes. But last year we did a comprehensive look at all of our services in much greater detail than we normally look at.
Okay. And I don't know whether this creates a problem, but can you give us an idea of looking at the increases on 5A and 5B, how they might compare with what people are proposing for the RFP? Or could you go through that?
It's probably not good at this point to get into that, but we mentioned in the report that the rates that are proposed for packages 4, 5A, and 5B are all within the range of what we're spending on our other community dash services today.
And my final question is that in looking, and I realize that we're looking at 3 different lines, I just didn't quite understand on package 4, we're talking about a 3% increase on a contract that was 3 years, but then on the 2 5-year contracts, they go from 21 to 45%.
Yeah, part of it, I think, is the term of the contract, the 5-year contracts being older. I think it's more a matter of the contractors indicating that on those particular contracts, there were issues like labor costs, CBAs that were approved that significantly increased beyond what they assumed in the proposal. Fuel costs, obviously, the older contracts assumed lower fuel rates than what we're seeing today in some of the newer contracts. Insurance, things like that. So there are a number of factors that they cited, but labor, fuel, and insurance were the primary factors that were cited.
I was just wondering, would those increases have been in the first 2 years of the 5-year contract? Because it would appear, if we're talking about your gas and insurance and a lot of things, they'd be somewhat comparable over the last 3 years for everyone.
Yeah, I think there's so many different potential factors why the costs are going up so much more in these contracts. I think in general what we've seen, every time a new contract, or an existing contract expires and a new contract is awarded, the contractor typically says that the costs have gone up higher than they've anticipated. So every year the bar is raised. I think for some of these older contracts, the base rates that they assume, I mean, I think for package 5B, it was about $61 an hour, which we haven't seen for Dash in a number of years. So a lot of it just has to do with what they assumed going in. I think in certain instances they may have underestimated what the costs were going to be by a significant amount.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
The last thing, if I could, how many Dash or Metro buses would go outside the city?
Dash typically does not go out the
I got that.
city.
The other one that goes Pasadena, Encino, et cetera.
We have several routes that go outside the city, and we get funding from the MTA to do that.
I got it. But if we have a tough fund period coming up, those are the first I got to look at. I got to preserve the Dash in our neighborhoods. Those are going to be tougher. Whenever I see the Antelope Valley bus down here, which I know MTA supports, they got an option with Metrolink. They could come to the same place, but it's just a choice.
We looked at all those factors. I hear what you're saying.
Thanks so much, James. Sure. And go up to San Francisco and look at Pier 39 and look at that nice trolley they got running. I want one like that for the Griffith Observatory one, please.
We have actually have some new trolleys on order.
Yeah, let's make sure. Let me see what they are. We already signed the contracts?
Yes.
I hope they're
very nice.
I hope they're open air too. Make it a fun experience. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you very much. Mr. Koretz, any comments on that? So we'll go with the recommendation, which is to approve the CAO report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, folks, we're going to go to item number 5. I just want to do a logistic reality here. The mayor's doing his State of the City address. My colleagues, some of them want to leave. I won't have a quorum. So we got to move as quickly as we can in our presentations as well as in our questions.
Just a suggestion, if you could have public comment 1 minute, and if they need a little more, you stir that. That's what I do in my committee when I have more than 7 cards.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate that recommendation. Could we hear what item 5 is, and could I ask Mike and Rudy to come on up and make a presentation? Please read it what it is.
Item number 5 on the regular agenda is the city attorney report and ordinance adding section 85.11 to the division Q of the chapter 8 of the LAMC to allow lawful participation in the roadmap to housing program administered by LASA.
Give us the brief history. Remind the committee of the last amendments, the sunset clauses, the Westchester Neighborhood Council, and also the Venice. And I'd like you to explain where we are for my colleagues and for the audience as well. Mike Bonin.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Mike Bonin, Councilman Rosendal's chief of staff, along here with Rudy Salinas, who's one of the program coordinators for us at PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. As we explained at the last committee, Councilman Rosendahl has been working on this proposal for some time. It's part of a balanced, two-pronged strategy to deal with the issue of vehicular living in CD11. CD11 has a larger population of people living in their vehicles, largely RVs and campers, but also smaller vehicles than any other part of the city. Over the past couple years, the councilman has implemented parking restrictions and increased law enforcement against violations of laws against lodging in your vehicle. That was one half of a strategy. The other half is what's before you today, which is a program to help people who live on the streets in their vehicles get into housing. Toward that end, he contracted with LASA and with PATH to create the Roadmap to Housing program. You all have a copy of our PowerPoint presentation on it. And the goal is to get people through at least 50 vouchers that the councilman has secured into permanent housing. PATH will help them do that, and while their vouchers are being processed, because there has been so much enforcement of laws against vehicular living and so much increased parking restrictions, this will give them a safe place to stay for overnight hours only, for a period of time in select and designated spots for people willing to follow rules, agree to case management, and agree to get a transition to housing. This committee has heard this, I believe this is the third time, and at various times the committee has made suggestions to improve the program. At one point the committee asked that it be reduced from a citywide proposal to a pilot for CD11, and that was done. At an earlier committee meeting and hearing the voice of members of the community, this was reduced from any publicly owned parking lot in CD11 to initially 2 lots, the lots of the councilman's offices in Westchester and West LA. At the urging of members of the committee and the community, the councilman capped the number of vehicles allowed to participate in the lot at any one time at 8. At the urging of this committee, the councilman initially had a buffer zone of 50 feet from any residence to a parking spot. And at the urging of this committee at the last meeting, the councilman added a 3-year sunset to the program to further establish that it's a pilot and that it will have to get further council review at the end of 3 years. Last week, the councilman sent a letter to his constituents, those interested in this, saying that he was at this committee meeting inclined to make 2 further amendments. One of those was to triple the buffer zone from 50 to 150 feet. And the second was to, at the urging of the Venice Neighborhood Council and others who support this program in Westchester and West LA, to include a lot in the community of Venice. Since this last committee meeting, the LAPD and CD11 have conducted an exhaustive inventory of every publicly owned parking spot in the community of Venice. Due to the law, due to some unwilling partners at the county level, and due to our own jurisdiction, we're limited to looking at publicly owned lots in the city of Los Angeles. So within Venice, we went through every lot with the LAPD, and we determined that the lot with the greatest distance from any residence, the lot with the least residential impact, was the large publicly owned parking lot at the Penmar Golf Course on Rose Avenue. The neighborhood councils in Westchester have endorsed the Westchester lot and have said they will do so as long as Venice steps up and provides a lot. Last night, the Venice Neighborhood Council voted 12-2 to endorse this proposal with the specific inclusion of the Penmar Golf Course lot. Again, the reason we chose the Penmar Golf Course lot is that it is the furthest from any residence of any lot that we have access to. Any lot that we looked at in Venice would have posed unique challenges. This one poses challenges as well. We've been working closely with Recreation and Parks, the division that manages the golf courses, and they have raised a few concerns which we have addressed. They want to make sure we will not be using their maintenance yard. We will not, because there's a gas tank there. They want to make sure that we won't be having the facility unlocked at night so people who want to use a restroom can get free access to the greens. We will not be doing that. And they wanted to make sure that we would work with them to have flexibility on the hours of the program so that the participants of the program would not be taking up spots from those who participate in the golf programs at the course. So what the councilman has agreed to do is keep the shell of the program in the ordinance, which gives the parameter of the hours for all 3 lots, and then Path and Rec and Parks will work out an agreement to modify the hours for this particular location. Rudy will tell you a little bit about the outreach they've done and perhaps about some of the families who've already been helped.
Rudy, before you speak, I got a question for you. I want to be clear on this. To participate in this program, you had to be identified from when I put the motion in, which was what date, until the end of 2010. So explain that.
Absolutely. My name is Rudy Salinas. I am the Director of Outreach for PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. As you were saying, Bill, on more than one occasion, numerous homeless providers in the community have gone out and counted the population of people living on the streets of Venice. The original date I think you may be referring to is, I think, 2008?
Fall of 2008.
Fall of 2008.
Through December 2011.
Yeah, and the most recent count we conducted was in right before December of 2010.
And that being the case, we're talking about people that we've identified in their campers or cars through that period of time. No one since then will be part of the program. Those that were identified during that period of December of 2008 and December of 2010.
Exactly,
correct?
sir.
How many are we talking about?
Presently, my team has encountered a total of about 41 people. 41 living in
So there are
vehicles.
41 who are in this element from 2008, 2009, and 2010?
Correct, sir.
So the total population is 41.
From what we have seen since we started in March, sir, yes.
So that when we experienced 250 of these things, that then got reduced to 40 or 50 as the police were enforcing 8502 and other issues.
To your point, in November of 2010, we counted 150 vehicles on the streets. And this is, again, in November of 2010. In March of this year, my team noticed 41.
So then, those that were part of that 100 and something, they've gone, you don't have them recorded, can they come back or not come back? Who will be eligible for this program?
If the person was identified during any effort that we conducted in the month of December, or previous counts between the time we said, which is 2008 to 2010, they would qualify for our services.
And how many are they altogether?
The
And you have data on these people?
The data I have is on the November count, which was 150 vehicles identified in November of 2010. I can tell you that in July of 2010, we counted close to 300. But that number was reduced significantly between July of 2010 to December of 2010.
And how did that reduce itself?
You have the seasonal people who come in during summer months to work on the boardwalk. You have a good population that does that. The police efforts in the community have definitely added to the fact that many have left or gone. Enforcement of parking, we feel, could have been one of the main reasons why people were receiving tickets over and over again. But the number, again, has reduced. I can't answer to other reasons as to why they would have left, but those are some of our reasons we think we...
Okay, but the clarity I need right now is you're saying there's 141 that were initially by November of 2010?
In November of 2010, 150 vehicles were identified. In March, just a month ago, we noticed 41, sir.
Okay, and those 150, do you know who they are in particular?
We know, of them, 56 agreed to speak to us. We know their names. We have their information.
Okay, so bottom line is there are 56?
Yes.
Because nobody else can say, I was here, you have no...
Even if we don't have their information, sir, we know their cars, because we kept track of license plate numbers, vehicles, models, and makes.
For 141 or
For 150, sir.
For 153?
Yes.
So you got 153 license plates or people that you feel are part of this program going forward?
150 vehicles that we have license plates and numbers for.
Total. So nobody else can jump into this, nobody can play out or come by and anything else. They have to fit within that 150 that you have data on.
Correct, sir.
Is that?
Yes, that is correct, sir.
Okay, so the 3 lots, let's assume we get 3 lots, that's 8, 8, and 8. You rotate them in and out. How does this work in that context of how much time it takes? How do we move forward with this? And what's our sensibilities of the duration of dealing with roughly, I guess, what was the figure again, 100 and what?
150.
150.
Basically, we have an outreach team that works on the streets and engages every single person living in a vehicle in Venice. They meet the folks in order to collect their information and begin triaging them to all the services they need, getting them linked to medical services, drug and alcohol services, getting their IDs, their social security cards, everything in place. As we meet these folks, we clearly describe to them the criteria of the program, which is the rules, the conditions by which a person will qualify to receive the services that we are offering. If the person is willing to accept these services, then we will go ahead and immediately start working with them. We will go ahead and start the process of trying to get them linked to housing, sir. The process of housing the person can vary. You may have certain individuals that have all of their documents in place and could potentially be housed in less than 45 days, which means the process itself would entail not only collecting their documents, advocating with a landlord, identifying income, and telling a landlord, but believe it or not, there are certain individuals we have encountered that can receive the services in less than 45 days. You will have other individuals who have a number of issues that need to be addressed, specifically potentially regarding their mental health status, any addiction issues. You may have some folks who, because of criminal background history, do not fit the criteria for this program. Those persons identified within this group that I am describing will continue to receive our services and will be redirected to other services that are available. However, our team will work and help every single human that we find living in a vehicle in the community. Whether they fit for the parking lot or not specifically fits on each individual case-by-case basis. Some will meet the criteria to move into the parking lot, others won't, sir.
Okay. With that as a backdrop, again, just one more fleshing it out, because I want to be really clear here. You say there are 150 vehicles with people in them that you captured within your data collection.
In November of 2010.
And what has happened? You're down to 41. Where did the other 109 go? And would they still be eligible even if they have out-of-state license plates or this or that or whatever?
In our conversations with the folks that remain, we've been told that many did feel the pressure from LAPD with the parking restrictions. There were some who, because winter was approaching, decided to leave or decided to move away from the area. If they do return, and we can identify that they were seen during the time that we conducted these surveys, we will go ahead and offer them services. I cannot answer to the likelihood that they will or won't return, but I can say that we have a very detailed account of all the vehicles, plus the 56 individuals that we encountered, so that we can keep track of who was screened and who qualifies for these services.
And the last question on the same thing as the 56 that were screened and the 41 that are still there and the 150 as your overall population. Let's assume theoretically that some of the other 150 who are not there now, not part of the 41, want to come back. What is the sunsetting of making all this happen? What time frame are we working?
I mean, I'm not sure if this specifically answers, but I think for us, since our presence is constant on the streets and we are there 5 days a week for 8 hours every day, we track the movement of all the vehicles and all the folks who are there. As we identify people who come in, we will go ahead and begin the process with them if they fit the criteria for the program. I don't know that I could answer to what a sunset or to which the closing point would be. I just know that during the time that we are allowed to do our work, we will carefully triage and look to provide services to the people who are living in their vehicles in your community.
I see. Then my last question is, what if one of those 150 or 10 of them or 50 of them, when you really drill down, don't have their act together and don't want to get their act together and don't want to be part of something? What happens to those folks?
They will be obviously facing whatever the laws that LAPD is carrying in the community will be. We will obviously remind them that we are a service that's available to them. The services that we offer, sir, are not mandatory. Every person has a right to choose whether or not they want to accept the services we offer. And I pride myself on the fact that our team is consistent and that we will go to every person as many times as we need to make sure that they are being helped. So if they are in the district and we can approach them day after day, we will continue to do so to offer them services, sir.
And I just wanted to add, I think it's very important every time we talk about this to put a human face on the program. And Rudy articulated the many restrictions of the program and who wouldn't qualify. He underscored that this is not a program for the service resistant, and that you'd have to agree to a number of things and meet a number of criteria in order to receive a housing voucher or get into a parking lot. But I just want to for a second describe who those folks are that do get into the parking lots. The priority for the program is seniors, is veterans, and is families. The population they have surveyed skews older than the typical homeless population in California, and skews vulnerable compared to the homeless population in California. There are people who are on SSI or who have medical needs, and that'll be part of what PATH does, is connect them. A couple examples. Last week in Westchester, one of our local papers just wrote about this. PATH, working with the Westchester Neighborhood Council, identified a family of 7, 2 adults and 5 children, aged 2 to 18, living in a van in Westchester. The kids enrolled in school, the Hawthorne schools. They outreached to them. They began providing casework to them. And right now, their housing voucher is being processed. Because this program was not online yet, they got very lucky. They scored them a place at the Upward Bound House on the Culver City-Mar Vista line. But this program is for the folks, unlike the Williams family, who won't have that golden ticket to Upward Bound House. We also have veterans. There's a guy that they found in Venice the other day, a 69-year-old who was honorably discharged from the Navy, who's been living in his van for years. And they're now processing a VASH voucher, a voucher for veterans, to help him get housing. So these are the folks who are recent victims of the economic downturn, who are vulnerable and who need help and who are willing to abide by rules to get help.
If I may, just to let you know that during the month of March, the staff that we have on the streets actually was providing services for a total of 120 hours in the month of March. During those 120 hours, they engaged a total of 41 homeless clients living in vehicles in Venice. Of the 41, 37 of those clients actually agreed or allowed us to begin providing them case management services. the team received a total of 85 phone calls from people living in vehicles as a result of the heavy saturation of flyers that we provided in the community to make folks aware locally that we are there to provide services to them. I should add that in the month of March, our PATH vehicular outreach team that works in Venice placed a homeless woman in interim housing. She had recently become homeless due to her mental health state, and our outreach team was able to provide her linkages to immediate mental health services. She's now on medication. She has applied for the Section 8 voucher, and we feel quite confident that with all of the support we've provided her, she will be in housing in a very short amount of time.
Thank you for that. I'd like to ask Kevin Reagan to come up, the number 2 at the Rec and Park. Mike, stay there for a little bit, and Rudy. Last night we had a community meeting with the Venice Neighborhood Council. Venice Neighborhood Council started at 7. It went until a little after 11. And every point of view and every attitude was discussed. There was a significant number of folks who physically live around the Penmar area there, and they raised issues and concerns. One of them was the golfer getting up in the morning and doing golfing and its interface with a vehicle that might be there. Second question was the rules, which Rudy has explained what the rules are to be in the program. A third one wanted to know about bathroom facilities and how that would work. And frankly, there were some strong concerns from immediate neighbors about the viability of this. And also there has been some letters that I've received in the last 24 hours from immediate neighbors who are supporting it. But it is a controversial issue for golfers and for neighbors. Could you help us understand how this lot would complement and fit in with our mission, which is frankly what you've just heard, to get the maximum of these 150, if they're qualified and eligible over a period of time, out of their vehicles, out of a temporary holding area at night, and into permanent housing? How does this work with Penmar? To anticipate some questions that you might hear coming up from the public comment, but I'd like you to lay it out.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Councilman. Kevin Reagan, Assistant General Manager with the Department of Recreation and Parks. And I think Mike Bonin did a good job of expressing the ideas and some of the concerns the department had in terms of the parking lot. Initially, when the Department of Recreation and Parks was approached regarding this proposal, we were asked if the service yard, the golf course service yard, could be used for parking of the vehicles in the overnight hours, and we expressed some concern with that because we do have a city gas pump facility in that service yard. So that was something we didn't want to actually utilize for the program. But there are, in the Penmar golf parking lot, there's currently 83 parking spaces. And those parking spaces are in a lot just off of Rose Avenue. And they're located in front of the golf course. So as you, there's an entrance and an exit. And so what we would be proposing is that the Penmar Golf parking lot could accommodate the proposed 8 vehicles in 8 spaces that would be designated towards the northeast corner of the parking lot. The one concern we had is that the ordinance calls for restroom facilities to be made available during the overnight hours while the folks are sleeping in their vehicles. The problem that we saw with that is that the restroom facility at the golf course is located inside the golf course near the starter's window and the little snack shop, and it's behind a locked gate. We lock that up at night to secure the golf course. So in conversations with Mike Bonin, I recommended that we have that the program install a portable restroom near the 8 designated spaces in that northeast corner of the lot, and that the portable restroom also have like a washing station. You know, portable restrooms, they have the ones that are just kind of like have the toilet facilities, but they have another component that they can add, which is like a wash station. So we recommended that. So if the portable restroom and wash station were installed, the 8 spaces were identified, and the hours of operation would be the only other issue I think that the department would have. So it's important for everyone to understand that the golf course hours of operation are 1 hour before sunrise and to open, and 1 hour after sunset that they close. So we could have golfers arriving as early as, say, 5:30, 6 a.m. To the golf course. So I think that as long as We limited the number of spaces used for the program, kept it in that northeast corner, and allowed free access to the golfers when they get there in the morning, didn't have any conflicts. The department doesn't really see a big conflict here, and we think that Penmar lot could be used to augment the program.
What hours would work to not be in conflict with?
Well, the current hours are proposed, if I'm not mistaken, from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Correct.
And I said...
That's the Westchester lot and
Right.
potentially the West LA lot.
So what I was proposing is that we just reverse it, that it would be coming in at 8 p.m. and leaving at 6 a.m. That the folks could arrive at 8 p.m., park their vehicles, and then they would leave by 6 a.m.
Because the sunset's about 7:15.
In daylight savings time. And maybe we could put some adjustments in there for daylight savings time. We could have different hours.
And what kind of sensing do you get from the manager of that facility? Cooperation, coordination, and there's a restaurant there too.
There is a restaurant there. From everything we've read and been told about the program, it sounds like a very self-contained program. Security would be provided. There's kind of a case manager that works with the folks that are going to be there. So this is not an unregulated use where people just kind of come in the parking lot and park willy-nilly and cause congestion. So I think it's a very well put together program, and if it functions that way, the manager at the golf course agrees with me that we see that this could work and it wouldn't be necessarily a conflict.
Okay.
I guess the one last thing that I would mention, just for the council to consider, is two things. Number one, just general liability. In today's litigious society, when things happen in terms of some type of litigation against the city, many times the departments are looked on as, well, why didn't you take precautions, this and that. So the department wouldn't want to be held responsible for things that could be related to this program that may become liability issues. Secondly, just for us to all remember that recently, within the last fiscal year, we were directed to take our golf operations program off the general fund completely. So this is a revenue-generating operation that has to now self-fund. So we wouldn't want to do anything that would affect revenue generation.
And you'd be watching that and monitoring that?
So, yes.
Okay, my last question is now to Rudy. Explain what you did to the community last night, the rules inside of this program that would, have participants committed to if they were in those 8 slots or 8 vehicles in that golf course.
Absolutely, I'll go through them. I'm going to go through about 12 of them basically are quickly. The use of alcohol and drugs is forbidden and will result in immediate expulsion from the program. No open fires or cooking outside the vehicle at any time. No weapons at any time. No loud music, disruptive noise at any time. Respect your neighbors and the neighborhood. All trash will be properly disposed of, and the area will be kept tidy and clean. Overnight stays are limited to the hours assigned. Animals must be kept on a leash at all times. Barking dogs must be kept inside a vehicle at all times, and animal waste must be picked up immediately and disposed of properly. No visitors are allowed. No participant will invite other vehicle dwellers to occupy the site or invite visitors into the parking lot. Only one vehicle per family is allowed. Program participants waive owner of parking lot liability for any damages caused by third party to the parked vehicle or its occupants. Facilities services are only to be used if part of your site agreement. Facility services are defined as water, trash, etc. Respect the privacy of surrounding neighborhoods and property. Children must be supervised at all times. Notice must be provided if you leave temporarily or permanently. All keys or pass keys or other site-related items will be returned to staff before you leave. These are just some of the general initial agreements or conditions that we ask of all the clients. It must be important, too, that case managers and other program staff have the authority to visit at any time, day or night, without prior notice to verify compliance of the program rules and regulations. In addition to this, you will work with your case manager, attend meetings either at the site or at the case manager's decision, locally, daily, or weekly. So there are a number of conditions that we ask of every single participant in order for them to be parked in the parking lot. I should add, too, that when the person is not in the parking spot throughout the evening, throughout the day, They are busy working with our case management staff, with our outreach workers. They are receiving advocacy at local offices. They are being taken to medical appointments. They are receiving a number of services. So throughout the day, it is expected we are working closely daily to get them set up and ready so that they are housing ready
With
soon.
them, but not in those lots.
Not in those lots, they're outside of the lots. The lots are only for the evening hours.
Okay, now, you've got the police, LAPD, you've got your own folks with PATH, and then you're going to have a private security company as well.
Absolutely. We are looking at a private security company that will be closely tied to ourselves, to our staff, and to local LAPD from Pacific Division in order to see that there is constant supervision going on at all hours throughout the evening.
Okay, Mr. Bond, do you want to add anything? I'm going to go to the public comment.
Just one thing I think it's important to add that we didn't cover is that as part of the contract between LASA and PATH, PATH will be required to have community working groups on a regular basis with the neighbors and the LAPD and Recreation and Parks for each lot, so there'll be an ongoing dialogue. There also will be a hotline number people can call for a real-time reaction to complaints or any issues that come. They will answer the phone
hours a day.
Yes. And that the program guidelines can be changed to add or delete something as we go along. If there's another rule that needs to be implemented to come up to respond to an issue that comes up at a particular lot, that can be done so.
Well, thank you, the three of you, for your presentation. Why don't you just sit in the front row, because we're going to go through the cards, and Mr. LeBlanc proposed 1 minute, because I don't know if Mr. Koretz is planning to go to the mayor's. Well, the mayor's
The city,
says, we're all going to, and so we want to see how much we can accomplish at this point. With that in mind, I'm just going to take the cards and just ask 4 people at a time to come up. Let's Maria Hammond. We'd like to ask Barbara Gibson. We'd like to ask Sue Kaplan. And we'd like to ask Laura Robinson. First 4 to come on up.
I beg, Marie was unable to come, so she wrote a letter.
Marie Hammond wrote a letter?
So may I read her letter, and then I have my own comments.
I don't know, can we do that? Is that okay?
I think that's great. If someone can't come, and this is democracy at the work.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mr. LeBlanc. Okay, this is from Marie Hammond, who lives at 214 Dimmick off of Rose Avenue. The decision makers for this program have forgotten about the majority of the people of LA who use park facilities. The facilities are necessary for the mental and physical health of the working class of Los Angeles. These should not be encumbered with RVs. These facilities need to be protected. They are sacred green space. Our councilperson has forgotten about the thousands of Angelenos who only escape from the stress of supporting a family, paying rent, mortgages, taxes, and maintaining a job is being able to enjoy our parks. He has forgotten about those whose taxes are funding this project. If someone really wants to get off the street and into subsidized housing, then that someone should accept any parking space available, whether it is in Venice, Mar Vista, or downtown LA. These lots are temporary for these people. They are at the door to a better life. Please do not ruin the park. Okay, mine is, I support Pat. I'm Barbara Gibson, but I oppose the Penmore Park lot, and I really find it was terrible how this was a backroom deal, that it was just brought out on Thursday. No community outreach. And we're being held hostage by West LA and Westchester by saying that if we don't provide a lot, then they're not going to participate in this program. And Venice has participated in this program for at least 15 years, on our streets, on our lots, on our beach. And we have all the social services on Rose Avenue that Westchester and West LA people come down to. So we have the Venice Family Clinic, we have the Feeding Center, we have St. Joseph Center, we have Steve Clare. So I'm sorry, but we're already participating. So, and I have a concern as far as the gentleman said that you're going to have the PATH case manager and security on that lot. And we were told last night that the person's going to go from Westchester to West LA to this Venice lot. So there's not going to be security all the time. So it's still a process, and I'm sorry, it's not right.
Appreciate
It
that.
is not right.
Laura Robertson. And then we
Actually,
have-
my name is Lala Robinson.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Okay. I've been living in Venice for almost 10 years, and this long debated program is about getting homeless people into housing. And that's what it's been about for a long time. We seem to come to a solid solution for all concerned parties, and then the VNC and a couple of other people continually make it about keeping people in Venice. And as somebody who does a lot of work with different homeless organizations around the city, especially with women, I'm incredibly disgusted with the way that this has been handled. There has been nobody's asked for input from residents. It's just sort of been told exactly what lots are being thought of. I live along South Venice Boulevard, and when those lots were being considered, I thought that was a terrible idea as well for a number of reasons, and I really feel for the people of Penmar now. There are 2 lots that are perfectly fine. PATH says that they can start the program. There are homeless people who have gotten up and said that they want to enroll in the program and that they're excited about it. They'll go to West LA, they'll go to Westchester, and, we had somebody who died in a van earlier this year. If this program had been in place a year ago or a few months ago, maybe he could have been helped. Maybe he would have been able to surpass his life expectancy of 47 years for a homeless person if he had actually had some kind of help.
Appreciate your comment. And remember, we're talking about people living in cars and campers, not those who are just on the street. That is a bigger issue.
Well, I am talking about people who are living in cars and campers.
Okay.
That man was living in a
I
van.
just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Sue Kaplan, Dee Odette, Jeb Parker, if I said that right, and Linda Lux. Sue Kaplan.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. There are many reasons why I urge this committee to pass the ordinance today, but I do fear we may be losing sight of what the purpose of the safe parking component is. PATH may say that they don't need the parking spaces, that they can do their job without them, but that isn't what this is about. These parking spaces are for the participants of the program, for the luxury that we all take for granted, a good night's sleep. So important to this program and their success in transitioning to homes. And I don't think without 8511, PATH can guarantee a safe night's sleep. So please, let's not harden ourselves and lose sight of this, what the importance of a good night's sleep and the importance of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for that. Could we have Sean? Is that Sean Swev?
No, you didn't call.
Also come up? And could we have Stuart Oscar prepared to come up? Okay. Dee Dee.
Thank you. My name is Dee Dee Odette, and I live in Venice, California. I want to tell you folks that this is an historic occasion in which Los Angeles will be the only large city in the world to recognize that there is such a thing as a mobile population who have the needs for services as any other type of resident. This is a first. And so I thank you for giving this your fullest consideration because it is tied to a lot of money that comes into this city from tourism. Venice Beach is a huge attraction, and the land in Venice is very, very expensive. So having done this, it's been wonderful, and you have a great opportunity to put this city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Jeb Parker?
Yeah, Parker, thank you.
Popper?
Yeah, first I want to say that while I am a member of the board of the neighborhood council, I speak only for myself today. This is my own personal opinion. And having said that, I also want to say I'm very uncomfortable with the whole thing. I don't know anyone, as a matter of fact, who is comfortable with the whole thing, and I don't expect that any of us can possibly expect to get some kind of blessing or anything other than the goodness that we obtain by helping someone who cannot help themselves, as well as, excuse me, as well as we can help ourselves. I want to emphasize that I support the ordinance, and I would support expansion of the ordinance as we see the successes that it will bring us, as long as we keep a positive approach to it and as long as we emphasize what we can do over what could happen if we don't do what we can do.
Appreciate your comments. Next speaker is Linda Lux.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Linda Lux. I'm president of the Venice Neighborhood Council. The Neighborhood Council has been dealing with this issue, considering it, deliberating, listening to our constituents for the last couple of years. We've also appreciated Councilman Rosenthal's and adopted his carrot and stick approach. We've had lots of sticks. This is the carrot. Last night we had a 4-hour meeting, listened to well over 100 people, and determined at a very almost unanimous vote, 2 people voted against it, to approve the concept that would include a lot in Venice, the Penmar lot. It was presented late, but the determination was there needed to be, since this is Venice people, 1 Venice lot. The pilot program, now remember this is just CD11 pilot program, the Vehicles to Homes program, will provide a pathway for people reduced to living in their vehicles to permanent housing by providing a temporary location to sleep safely at night in Westchester, Venice, and West LA. And if this pilot is successful, it will serve as a model for the whole city, and it could be a model for the entire country. So we hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Before Sean comes up, we have Stuart Oscars up there. We'd like Mark Ryavec and Jenny Carrillo. You're up, Sean.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate you giving me a few moments here. Firstly, I propose calling these parking sites what they truly are, gentlemen. They are shelters. They are vehicular shelters. This is a term that has been coined by the social service industry, and we've been dancing around this for the last 3 years. We're calling them parking sites. We're calling it a safe parking program. We're actually, what we're doing is we're bringing shelters into these neighborhoods without any vetting. The people in Penmar were given Thursday night, they were told that, hey, this is happening. Bill's had 3 years to tell them, hey, this might be coming to your town, your part of town. He chose not to do that. I don't think it's fair. I do believe we need more transparency in this ordinance. And I want you guys to think about a couple cities. You got San Francisco, you got New York. Look what they did to Haight-Ashbury, and look what they've done to Times Square. What are we going to do in Venice? Do we want a Haight-Ashbury or do we want a Times Square? And to close, since I don't have time, last night, you guys have thrown in porta potties now. Why are you bringing blight into my neighborhood? Tom, excuse me, Mr. LaBonge, you even said that I couldn't propose this for my district. I'd be run out of town. You've gotten Venice from a black and white issue to a gray issue. We are accepting this.
Wesson, not Tom LaBonge.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Who said it?
Herb Wesson.
Herb Wesson.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Tom.
No one runs me out of town.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Okay, we appreciate what you said, but also know this is part of the vetting process that we're doing here, like we did last night, and this is the public discussion to interact for or against whatever. This is how we make the democracy work. I appreciate your comments.
Just in closing, I've asked many times, give us an escape clause. If there's things that are happening with the program and in our neighborhood, make it easy for us to rectify it. Put it in writing. Amend if you comprehend. Thank you, gentlemen.
And we'll do that. Yeah, that's key. Stuart.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in a race here. The waiting line of people who are waiting, what's going to happen with them? Where are they going to be? The 8 spaces at Penmar Park, that's not really going to be 8 spaces because these vehicles are bigger than 1 space. So there's going to be multiple, whether some need 3 or some need 2. There's going to be more spaces. In Eugene, Oregon, they tried melding commercial lots and vehicle lots together. They found it doesn't work. This is something that's very important. So I hope we have a way to, if this doesn't work, between the golf course, the restaurant, and the vehicles, because they found in Eugene, Oregon, that the businesses lost money, they lost customers. So you've got to have a way to get an out clause there. Buffer zone. We're still talking about the buffer zone. The buffer zone is interesting. I've gone outside my yard and I've stood on my yard and looked at what's the difference between 50, 150, 250, 300 feet. I think I'd advise all of you to please go outside your yards and just kind of imagine what that looks like. Because you'll be plunking 8 units at that distance in a lot. Also, one last thing. Brentwood, Mar Vista, and Pacific Palisades and Castle Lamar are in our district. Their names never come up in any of these discussions. I'm wondering why Brentwood, Mar Vista, and Pacific Palisades seem to be exempt from this.
Appreciate your comments. Jenny? Good afternoon.
Hi.
And while Jenny's just about to speak, can I ask Tamarick Bryant, if I got that right, and David Ewing to come on up to the 2 empty seats? Okay. Would you like to go before her?
No, I was
Okay.
just waving at Paul.
Okay, so Jenny, all right, we have Tammy coming up, and David Ewing. Where's David Ewing? Okay, all right. Jenny.
Hi. Thanks for letting me address you.
Sure.
I've been living on the corner of Penmar in Indiana with my kitchen window facing the park and facing the golf park for 13 years. And our neighborhood is a very close-knit, beautiful neighborhood. We've worked really hard to make it clean. We've worked on the parks. We run around those parks. My son does golf camp at the golf course, plays soccer at the park. It's a community feeling. And so it was an incredibly appalling discovery last Thursday night to find out of nowhere that Thursday night suddenly, and it is true, it is a homeless shelter in our parking lot across the street from a lot of residents. You can use so many feet, but it's still right there, and there are still so many issues like a moving target that keep changing in terms of when somebody brings up something, they say, well, we'll change that, we'll change that, we'll change that. I don't know why we're in a race to have this added to the other two that have had much longer to discuss and implement changes that don't change every time somebody brings up a new point. And really quickly, there's a lot of traffic on Rose, and most importantly, I want to know where those vehicles are going to go in the morning when they leave, because inevitably most of them end up parking right around the park and staying in the neighborhood. So, I mean, it's not really going to be, it's not like the residents aren't going to be affected in other ways that haven't even been discussed here. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Mark Ryback.
Yes, Mark Ryback, President of Venice Stakeholders Association. I'd like to make 4 quick points. I co-chaired a committee called the Venice Neighborhood Council Ad hoc Committee on Homelessness and Vehicular Occupation. We made a series of recommendations. One of them was that any facility like this that to be used be at least 300 feet set back from any residences. Because the West LA and the Westchester offices are roughly around 200 feet, I have been compelled to come down to 200 feet. I would ask that you increase the 150 buffer zone that you have in there to 200 feet, because as Ms. Lux points out, this may become a precedent for the rest of the city, and I think that is an appropriate setback so that you don't simply move problem vehicles from one area very close to residents in another area. One of the models that we found in Santa Barbara that we thought that should be in the ordinance is that any of these sites should be screened with a fence, screened with foliage, trees, something of that nature, so that people do not have this sense of living next to or near a trailer park or an RV park. The third thing I would ask you to do is to consider putting in some kind of a mandatory limit on the length of stay. There are some people that are looking to participate in this program that think that they're just going to go and become what other gentleman was saying, this is a mobile shelter, and they'll be able to live there continuously with no impetus to have to move. So I would encourage you to put a 3-month limit of stay in any one lot. And finally, we had asked in our report for a conditional use process, so that this process that's going on here would have gone on where it should go on before the planning committee, the planning commission. It's a land use decision, and I would ask you that if you do take this and you look at taking this citywide, you do make a proper conditional use permit process for the siting of any of these kind of facilities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Could I ask Michael Millman to come up and Craig Kessler as well? Would you like to go, please?
I'm Tammy Bryant. I am concerned about the possible impact on a very precious resource, which is a public park. We know that there's risk because, by definition, we have an experimental program. We know that there's risk because, by definition, it's an experimental program. We've heard about financial viability concerns, and we also heard last night that the LAPD took 2 possible lots off the list because of some type of crime concern. I'm not quite sure what that was. So we know there's risk to this precious asset. In a case like this, I think there has to be compelling justification, not for the program, but for the impact on a public park. And I believe that there need to be clearly drawn rules, especially since this ordinance would supersede so many municipal code sections. So as to the second first, the clearly drawn rules, as Jenny, who spoke shortly before me, said, the plans on this have changed seemingly by the minute. We heard earlier that Mr. Regan is thinking that it's 8 spaces, and Mr. Councilmember Rosendahl told us last night, no, it's not 8 spaces, it's 8 vehicles. We've had different predictions of how much space in the parking lot it would take, the flexible hours, something that we'll be working with you on. These are not clearly drawn and limited to risk and designed to limit risk and impact. As far as compelling justification goes, the justification that we've been given is that our supporters insist that there be a lot in Venice. And I don't know that that's compelling justification. This is a mobile population by definition. In their homes with case management workers, we can identify them, and the example that was given to us of the 7 people in the vehicle were reachable and helpable without there being a lot. So all of those, to me, suggest that we need more care and attention to this as a preservation of a public asset, the public park.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your comments. David Ewing.
Thank you. My name is David Ewing. I'm a longtime homeowner in the neighborhood that's affected, the Penmar neighborhood. I would like to point out that there's been a lot of talk about a moving target, about changes in what's been before you and so forth. I want to point out that that's all been in response to community concerns. And what that brings up to me is that this is really not the place to address every particular community concern. The place to do that is in the rules for the program. You need to design an ordinance for success, not to protect against every single possible failure. You got to give the councilman the possibility of allowing the program to adjust as it goes along. It's a pilot program. If it doesn't have any room to move, if it's got its hands tied behind its back every step of the way, it's not going to be successful. You want to give him flexibility, the same as you would want in your district to govern your program. If it's not working, you got to change. If you can't change, it's not going to be successful. And I would point out, if I may, for just a moment, I wish that Nancy Kapp could be here. She runs the Santa Barbara program. She came down last night to speak to the Venice Neighborhood Council. And what she pointed out, they have a 50-foot minimum there. It's not about the minimum. It's not about a lot of these specifics. The point is you have to have a well-run program. If you have 300 feet and you don't have a well-run program, the neighbors are going to be furious. If you have 50 feet and you have a well-run program, as they have in Santa Barbara, then everybody is happy, and they expand it from private lots into municipal lots, from municipal lots now into commercial lots, where the businesses are asking for them because they serve as informal night watchmen, so it's a benefit.
Appreciate.
Thank you very much.
And did Larry Cloud, Heidi Roberts, and next one will be Marian Aguilar.
Hundreds of letters in favor. This is a huge majority we have in Venice.
You can give it to the clerk right here, they don't
Yeah,
pass it.
appreciate that.
Already got it.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Mike Millman. I live in Mar Vista. I'm a neighbor of the council person. I aggressively support this program, but I have to rise. I have great concerns about Penmar Golf Course and most of the people in Mar Vista on the Mar Vista Council. First, I'd like to take a half a second to thank this council for acknowledging my son Jeffrey's closest friend who passed on, Cam Kawada. You adjourned it, and it's a terrific gesture to a fine person. Bill introduced me to a gentleman named Bill Stump at a recent function in Venice. Bill's with PATH. He said, we'd be lucky, Michael, if we get 20% of the people to participate, and then of those 20%, they have to pay a certain amount of money, they will bail out. This is your chance to show some leadership. You're going to get a new director of the Housing Authority. Let him give you 300, 400, 500 vouchers, and as Mike Bonin said, these people want to live in their vans. This is a life choice. Give them the vouchers, let them go to Dockwire, let them go someplace else, but you can get 400 or 500 vouchers from the new director because you'll be vetting him. This is a great chance for you.
Okay, and what I'd like to ask you, and I've said this publicly more than once, that I would like to see mom and pop rental units in Venice willing to participate in this program so that we can quickly move people out of their camper into a Section 8 voucher within the Venice area there.
Right. We're on that team as long as the RSO is relaxed for the owner. We can't live with the RSO the way it is. It would have to be relaxed for that deal because then they would live there in perpetuity. If we fine-tuned it, we could make it available. We have a lot of vacant units for them.
I look forward to your leadership on doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mike Millman. Okay, we have Craig Kessler, Larry Cloud, Heidi Roberts, and Marianne Aguilar.
Craig Kessler, on behalf of the Southern California Golf Association, we've given you extensive written comments. In the handful of seconds that are available to me, I'd like to share with you that Kevin Regan of the Recreation and Parks Department got it half right. That department has been under incredible pressure to limit programs, to cut back, and with its golf program to make extensive profits to pay for the losses that have come out of the budgets of the City Council. Before you would go forward with this, we'd ask that you come up with some kind of impact statement. One thing he got wrong, I guarantee you, this will cost that department money and business. That may be a misperception on behalf of customers, but in business, the bottom line is the bottom line. Many persons will simply be dissuaded from frequenting the facility based upon this program or just reading about it in a newspaper. The second thing we'd request of you is the golf community has never been engaged in the addition of the Penmar Golf Course to this program, and as has been acknowledged here by many speakers, it was added maybe 1 week ago, 10 days ago at the most. Before you go forward, there's a lot of unanswered questions. We'd ask that you come up with a financial impact statement on the Department of Recreation and Parks and perhaps incorporate the money lost on that through the budget process. I'm sorry that Mr. Parks left. And the second thing is, please don't simply go through the Rec and Parks Department. The golf community has in no way been notified of this. I actually was notified in an email from your office last Thursday evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Kevin, I want you to come up when we're finished just to restate some of the comments you made that some of the folks who are coming in did not hear to begin with, especially Maria, who hadn't heard it because she wasn't in the room at that point. Larry, are you next?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Larry Cloud. I'm the president of the Penmar Golf Club, representing the golfers there. Personally, I find it very interesting that you got some kind of a new program for the homeless. This is a good idea. I can't think of a worse place to do it than Penmar, though. We've just lost all of the street parking to work that's being done on water mains for the next 2 years. We are forced to get everybody into that one large lot. It's difficult to do now. And now if we add in additional people who are using this lot at prime time, because with the 9-hole course, we tend to have people coming in early in the morning, we tend to have the kids coming off school and the Venice golf program, that sort of thing, late in the evening. We have people going onto that course before it gets light. We have people staying on there till it's dark. Now, that's not fair to the golfers. It's going to cause a problem with the vehicles. And how is that fair to the people who are actually in the vehicles? You're telling them they're going to have to show up in the dark and park an RV and then get up in the morning before light and move? What kind of good night's sleep are they going to get? This is not good for anybody. I don't think it's been well thought through. I think you ought to really consider that part of the program. Talk to us. Would be nice, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it, but this is just not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Heidi?
Well, I spent some time preparing my statement, so I will probably spend more than a minute delivering it. So here we go. We're all here because human beings living in vehicles and on the streets in our community is wrong. We all want to help, and we all agree that this is a problem, but what we don't agree on is how to solve this problem. Many of our community are very comfortable relying on standard old social services and its model to help those who are homeless living in the cars and on their streets, but I would argue that those old social services simply maintain status quo, and much like the concept of bringing your car into a service station, its intent is to maintain status quo and just keep things running. No change, status quo. Those services in Venice feed homeless people, they provide some clothes here and there, even a mailbox. All so people who really need help continue to hover 1 inch above rock bottom in Venice. There are 1,300 of those people living in Venice today. And that's according to Steve Clare's organization, who's so popular today. They don't need social services. They need their situation to change. I love this roadmap to housing program. I see great potential in it. I see it as offering real solutions. I see the people living on the streets of Venice who really need it. But the people of Venice, the 40,000 people who live in this town, need to see visible signs of change. They need to see that you are creating visible signs of change in order to have hope in the program. What they will see is that this is more of the same, and RVs just shifting from a street onto a parking lot in a very, very densely populated neighborhood surrounded by children, golfers, and parks. It's the most severely impacted community in all of CD11. That's inarguable. Shifting liveaboard RVs from the streets to parking lots is not change. It is more of the same. It does not signal that we're on a path. It does not foster hope among the community, starting the program with a whole bunch of us being really upset about it. And it looks old school, and frankly, it looks like y'all has succumbed to a lot of political pressure. Political pressure being applied by people who are afraid of change and want status quo. Change is going to be hard. I'm almost done. It's like chewing on tinfoil. I know that. However, you must be strong enough to stand up for all of us and provide change that we need. Visible change. Your 2 parking lots are terrific as way stations. That's what PATH has said that they need for the program to be successful. Too much of their budget is going into additional parking lots and additional security that should be going into the program. Please do not toss at the very last minute a park in the middle of a residential neighborhood into this mix just to satisfy people who are afraid of change and want things to stay the same. Please send a message to my community that we want social solutions, no more social services. Don't turn this program into a social service, please. That's it.
Thank you for that. And Maria, come on up. And could we also ask Mike Bonin and Rudy to come up, as well as Kevin Regan, to also respond quickly?
My name is actually Mariana Aguilar.
Mariana.
When I speak with the Department of Recreation and Parks about this issue, they tell me that they have to do what you say because they're managers. So one of you needs to stand up for the fact that a park is a park. It has a dedicated use in the city charter, and that's not as a mobile shelter. It's absolutely just a park. To let it be allowed for anything else for 3 years it's abhorrent. It's an ultra-virus use, and it shouldn't be allowed. The program lasts for 3 years, and it's an abuse to the park system in all. It will allow parks to be used for anything, and it sets an extremely bad precedent for parks in total. It makes me very angry when people say that the buffer in Santa Monica is 50 feet. The buffer in Santa Monica is 50 feet because the people in Santa Monica actually talk to the community before they designate the lot. So they have 100% community buy-in. Councilman Rosendahl has decided to forego all of that. He wants people to come to City Hall in the middle of the day at 2 o'clock for any kind of vetting process that should have been happening in the Penmar community on a Saturday when people are available. It's just disgusting that my neighbors were told about this on Thursday and are expected to come all the way down here to do this. The ordinance has become so much of a moving target at this point that we really need to step back and look at it again. Thank you.
Once again, council members, Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager, Department of Recreation and Parks, and what I understand is, Councilman, you'd just like me to restate some of the things I said previously about...
Respond to what you heard from some of the speakers. Yeah, we only got a few minutes.
Okay, well, I'll say again, in terms of the way I understand the program, provided that the issues that were addressed are the issues that were raised by most speakers are the same issues that I raised. Number one, that I initially stated early on in the program, we asked if the service yard could be used. We as a department stated that was not a good idea. There's a city gas pump in our service yard at that golf course. There are 83 spaces currently at the golf course parking lot adjacent to Rose Avenue. We determined the best place for this activity would be towards the northeast corner of the parking lot, which is actually near the service yard. We also determined that the restroom facilities are inside of the golf course and are locked up at night for security reasons. We want to keep those remain locked at night, and we suggested a portable toilet adjacent to the parking area in the northwest corner, kind of near the service yard. Portable toilet with a washing station is similar to the toilet in the little building. In terms of the conflict with the golfers, the golf course hours are 1 hour before sunrise to open and 1 hour after sunset to close. Golfers in the summer months and the daylight savings time can show up as early as 5:30 a.m. to start getting onto the golf course, and then leave after dark, which in the middle of day in the summer could be as late as 7:30, 7:45 in the evening. So I recommended that we possibly reverse the hours that were stated in the ordinance, that we have the individuals arrive at the parking lot at Penmar Golf at 8 p.m., and they would then be leaving by 6 a.m. If that's not possible, then we would need to determine how to not have those conflicts with the golfers. The entire lot doesn't fill up at 5:30 a.m. or 6. However, by 7, 8 a.m. on a good day, the spaces are at a premium. So that's the only thing I would have the council consider. Also, the fact that we do know that the golf program currently is self-supporting. So those are all the points that I wanted to make on behalf of the department.
Thank you. But 8 vehicles, not 8 spaces, or I just want to make sure we're clear on that, because that was one of the questions there.
From my understanding, it doesn't have to, I mean, I'm not saying it has to be 8 spaces. I understood it was 8. I understood it was 8 spaces. I may have been mistaken. However, I understand these are not all RVs. Some people sleep in cars, maybe a van. I don't know that every vehicle takes up 2 or 3 spaces. Maybe Mike Bonin could respond to that.
All right, and I know Mr. Labange and myself and Mr. Kretz are going to go off to the mayor's thing. So, Mike, quickly, what were you going to say? And Rudy, final comments.
Yeah, just to sort of respond to a couple comments. There were some folks who suggested the program's been a moving target. The proposal has indeed changed. The program has indeed changed at the request of many of the people who have been testifying here today. The councilman has increased the buffer zone. The councilman has reduced the scope of the program. He's made it a very narrowly defined pilot project. Almost in every way that it's become a moving target, it's been at the request of the community, at the response of feedback, and to make the program more flexible and more community friendly. Some folks have asked, what are the signs of change, and that simply moving cars into a parking spot won't be sufficient change. There has been significant change in the way that the population of RVs have existed in CD11 in the past year. Rudy talked about the dramatic reduction of the number of vehicles parked in CD11 right now because there has been such an aggressive change in parking enforcement and in LAPD enforcement of a ban on overnight vehicles. It has been absolutely dramatic. This is not creating permanent campgrounds. This is not creating permanent way stations. This is moving people into housing. But because there is so much aggressive enforcement right now, it's where you put them while they're being processed into the housing. We can't get them safely into housing if every time they park on the side of the street, someone is calling a cop on them. We can't get them safely into housing if 2/3 of the streets in Venice are going to be having signs up that say no oversized vehicles. This is the only means left to get people safely, people who need help and who are desperately seeking it. Some people also asked about the vetting process. The Venice Neighborhood Council has been discussing this for years. The Westchester Neighborhood Council has been looking at this for over a year. This is the 3rd meeting of this committee. In the past month, the Venice Neighborhood Council has had 2 meetings on this. The councilman is going to be bringing this before the West LA Neighborhood Council, and this committee will have the pleasure of hearing this again in a couple weeks. So the vetting process has been exhausted. Final thing I want to say is this is a difficult, complicated process. Coming up with a solution to a problem like this is extremely challenging. And it requires for a solution people and policymakers to invest both their best hopes and their optimism and their fears and their legitimate concerns. We have gone a tremendous length in listening to the legitimate concerns of people, increasing the buffer zone, looking for the lots with the least residential impact, limiting the scope of the program. All we do is we invite at this time folks who are concerned about the program to invest an equal amount of hope to match their fears to see that this can work and everybody can work together and make it happen.
Thank you. The city attorney, come on up, please, Ms. Reel. And colleagues, obviously, your comments and suggestions, what we're going to propose, and you can react to this as well, is that I would formally put a motion to increase the buffer zone from 50 feet to 150 feet. That would be my first movement if I got support. And then I would put a third lot, because we have our West LA lot and our Westchester lot, with the Penmar Golf Course lot as the third lot, but with what Michael Regan was saying, the cooperation with the golfers and working those issues.
Kevin Regan.
That would Kevin. That
His
would
dad
have to
was
be worked
Michael.
out, and that would be an ongoing fluidity in that issue. A, we want it to be self-sustaining financially. We want the restaurant to be humming. We want the golfers to be happy. That requires us to be very much engaged in this issue as we would go forward with it. I think that it's key that you spoke to that earlier. And so, unless you have a final comment, Rudy, what I would like to formally ask is to increase, Madam City Attorney, to 3 times the thing, and add a third lot at Pelmar Golf Course. Please.
Okay, a couple of things. How long is this process?
What process?
How long is this permit to allow this to happen?
Well, what will happen is, from this meeting, we will go, as Mike said, to April 20th, and we'll have a West LA meeting. It will come back to us for final consideration on April 26th. I'm going to have a special meeting here, yes, to this committee. But the program has limits to it, because we've identified 150 folks, and if they are part of this process...
Yeah, but how long is this? This is a test, pilot,
This is
right?
a pilot.
How long is the pilot?
That we have said 18 months,
I got
3 years.
Got it. All right, here's my thought.
Sure.
Just to let you know, post the 84 games, we had a similar but very large facility over on Santa Fe Avenue in central Los Angeles. Yeah. The late great Jim Wood, who was a labor leader, was the chair of that. It did not work because it was so big. Yep. But then it took, once you do it, it's tough to retreat. I would just suggest 90 to 180 days tests start out. That's either 3 months or 6 months, only because you're like in a track meet, you're breaking out of the blocks. You're either going to make it or you're not. There's a lot of passionate people who really want to do something good, and there go, but for the grace of God, go any of us for not having that. So okay, got that. 6 months.
Opportunity to go forward.
Okay, but also that the property then be cared for, because Mr. Reagan has lost 500 gardeners citywide, caretakers, to maintain this. So let's say us at this table, all are in vans, we go there. If I don't pick up after myself, he's got to pick up. There has to be some discipline to the space that they're using.
Let me just say this, because 6 months isn't going to work. Rudy, you needed what, 18 months minimum or 3 years?
I do. I needed at least the beginning 18 months so that I can...
Why 18 months? Here's what I would just say.
The contract
I got that. All right. Okay, let's just say it's 18 months. I think you should have an escape clause in 6 months, meaning if you find that it's not working for whatever reason, then you should all say, you know what, we really tried. Because all of a sudden, I'm just saying from experience around here, you get locked into something. This is something that we're going to experiment as a pilot. If it works, maybe it could work other places. Or someone made a very good comment, what is parkland for? And there's a whole lot of people have a whole different feeling on parkland. So I would just say to my good friend of the 11th District, 18 months was with an escape clause in Madam City Attorney, in 6 months, if you find that the police department, the council office, feels that it's necessary to say this experiment didn't work, and thank PATH, which was one of the greatest organizations to come along, for trying. I don't want us to get in a situation where I want you to have success, Bill.
And what I would like, because this is a free flow here, folks, you know, we don't play any games here. This is a straight discussion going on. Can the 18 months work with a 6-month clause to get out? And Mr. Bond, I'd like you to respond as well.
Meaning, this is the thing, Rudy. In 6 months, let's say we get this passed and it goes into effect June 15th. On October 14th, we find that it has unknown impacts to the people in the area. You know what? Maybe it didn't work. Because here's the thing. When you have doors that open and close, when you have people living echoes, nights, maybe things we don't realize. I would just say, I'm for the 18 months, but if we see it's a real problem justified by your office, because I'm putting it all on the councilman, you're running the pilot program, then you have an escape clause. You're not putting money out on this, are you, Rudy?
No, I'm simply an employee of PATH.
Got it. I got it. So I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with
If I might, I would remind the committee that the last meeting of this committee, you did vote to include a sunset provision. At that time, you voted to make it a 3-year provision. Right now, the current contract with PATH runs 18 months. I think we're concerned about the amount of time that is being taken from the provision of services to the sort of working out the details of the contract. I would also say that, if the program were an unmitigated disaster, whether it's permissible by ordinance or not, I imagine the councilman would pull the plug on it regardless of whether or not it was legal. If the program's not working, he's going to say, okay, we're not doing this anymore.
City Attorney, how does that sound, what we're saying?
Councilmember, I believe it's a matter of policy. Certainly, the ordinance could establish a different sunset period. It is 3 years because that was the motion that came out of this committee. If you'd prefer, if you pass a motion for a different period, I can certainly put that in. It's really not a legal matter. It's a matter of council's policy decision.
Plus, I don't think we're talking about a sunset period. What we're talking about is whether there's a period by mutual agreement in which we can eliminate the program if we all see it's not working. And maybe that should be 6 months. I don't know that would change your sunset or anything else.
And Councilmember, generally, I mean, you can amend an ordinance. This is an ordinance that you would be enacting. And you could amend the ordinance, or you could repeal the ordinance, within, 45 days, 30 days. I'm not so sure that you need to actually specify a date before which you can't act to repeal it, if council believes that it's necessary to repeal it.
Right.
So really, so again, if you want to identify a date, it's legal to do so, and it is a policy call for council.
I don't know if it needs to be in an ordinance or whether it should just be in whatever contract you write up at the end of the day. But I think you should all leave yourself some sort of an out. I would anticipate that this program works fine as a small pilot. But I think just in case, I think we all seem to be in agreement here. That's
how about 180 days that there be a report to this committee on the progress? I don't mean to tie you up, Bill, but I think it's real important that voices be heard on such an interesting concept that that gives a vehicle for people. In 180 days, that there be a report to this committee once it's established.
A report?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that on the agenda, so that people have an opportunity to look at it and then make determinations what to tweak, what not. You're going to see things, and also I don't want to see the burden be put on the park employees or the park patrons if we're not getting schooled.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and matter of fact, Kevin, if you sense during this 180-day period anything that is of concern to you, we're expecting you to bring it to our attention as to making it effective and worthwhile. Is that clear?
That's clear, and we understand that, and we will do that, Councilman.
So, okay, we'd like to vote now in moving this program forward with
the friendly amendment that this committee receive a report.
Full review in 180 days. If there's any opt-outing, you'll let us know about that aspect of it. And our goal is to take those 150 folks that have been identified and get them into permanent housing. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Councilman, I believe you wanted to remind that they'll be back in committee on the 26th, just for the record.
We'll be back in committee again, and a special meeting on this in April 26th. But is this a motion that you put forward in second?
I'll second.
Okay, approved by the three of us that we're moving forward with it as planned. I want to thank everybody for coming, everybody's comments and input today and last night as well. Meeting adjourned. She is a fabulous